Welcome to the World of Horror Special Edition Quinnisode, Episode 104. I'm Christina.
I'm Quinn.
This is the podcast where Quinn and I have a conversation about a work of classic horror in our Midwestern accents. For this Quinnisode, we are looking at Alfred Hitchcock's 1941 romantic psychological thriller film noir, Suspicion. Disclaimers for adult language and heavy spoilers. Let's move on to our first segment, Christina and Quinn chat. Hi, Quinn. How's it going?
Hi, Christina. It's going all right. How's it going for you?
It's good. I feel a little discombobulated because I had vacation in the middle of the work week. And so yesterday felt like Friday, but in fact, today is Friday, and that's a regular teaching day. But I only have one more meeting with those crazy kids. Then I just have to look busy basically at work until we go to our graduation ceremony.
Nice. Me too. I'm good at looking busy.
Yeah, you are good at looking busy.
I am. I actually mastered it this semester. I wish I would have taken a little bit more advantage of what I was doing when I was looking busy, but it was still good. It was still nice.
I need to plan for my fall course because I'm basically doing it. I am doing it without a textbook. And so, I don't know, I have to put it together. And then my kids were doing presentations today. And all of a sudden I was like, philosophy of humor. I wonder if anyone's ever written anything on the philosophy of humor. So I was going to investigate that. It was not good. It's not my proudest moment being that thoroughly distracted while my kids are giving presentations. But I was like, you know what? That would be kind of interesting, I think.
Yeah. Last time I did presentations, I remember thinking, oh God, I can't sit through these. And then I was like, don't do these again, Quinn. And I was like, okay, Quinn, we didn't do those again. I don't know. I quit them, obviously for COVID. And then I never went back to it. And I'm happier not having presentations.
That COVID really knocked me for a loop because I had a lot of small group discussion built into my class periods. And without that, it was really difficult to teach. We're kind of back to normal-ish. And so I have been doing a lot of group discussions and I like the presentations, but I did get sick of them. So I was just thinking today, I guess I'll probably just have them do 3 in a semester and just try to plan them strategically for when I need a break.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I went back to doing a lot of group work, but I didn't go back to presentations. But we are really done, pretty much. We're done.
Yeah.
Done. Just a matter of I'm already set for summer. But yeah, so I'm just going to sail into this.
That's kind of weird. I haven't been this free and clear at the end of a semester before. So basically, I don't have any finals to grade because I didn't give them a final exam. And I'm rethinking exams at all. And I would like to do oral exams, but I got to figure out how to do that. But I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I think people have figured it out.
Oh, yeah.
So I just need to research it and figure out how I'm going to do it. Yeah, so I'm trying a bunch of different things, but mostly with the aim to make my job easier.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really important to do. That's what I'm trying to do too. And it's good. Everything that we do to make our jobs easier, make it better for everyone else. It's just a matter of sometimes that's hard to do. Sometimes it takes so much energy to make your life easier, but that's all the good stuff does. So I guess it goes in line with that. All the stuff that's worth having is hard and blah, blah, blah. And this saying and that saying, and they're all true, I guess.
When I find something that works, I have all the artifacts that I wrote for it uploaded to a former course or whatever. I can just go and find it and just plug it in kind of thing. So that's good. But yeah, up front, it's a whole ton of work, but that's okay. I don't mind doing that. It's actually kind of fun. That's kind of a fun part of the job. But enough
Yeah.
Christina and Quinn teacher talk. Although I did lose it in my class today. And I haven't done that like in years. Kind of felt good in a way, but also felt real bad
I
also at
get
the
it.
same time.
Yeah, I've done that before. And I know that feeling where it's like, I should have done exactly what I did, but then it's just not something you would do every day. So I get it, and it feels both wrong and right. I don't think it's a big deal in the grand scheme of everything. My gosh.
No, I recovered pretty fast too, and I apologized and I said, I I'm usually a lot more in control, but on the other hand, my point still stands. Like you have to be just real careful when you're dealing with argumentation. And I guess what bothered me is, you never know if they've actually learned anything or not. And I'm trying to come up with like realistic projects that will demonstrate to me that they know or they don't know the material. And I'm working really hard. And then some knucklehead says, but then I was like, he's 17, he's 17, he's 17. That's what I always tell myself with this one particular person. I'm like, he's 17. Like, that's basically an embryo. So,
Yeah, it is, but it's also like it does kind of in a sense mean that he maybe doesn't know the material either, because if
yeah,
he were being analytical about it and being careful about weighing different sides, he would have never made the comparison.
yeah.
Especially in a public presentation.
Oh, yeah. No, that he was asking a presenter, anyway, I don't want to go into it. But so that happened, and I feel mostly okay now. But at the time, I felt really out of sorts. So,
Yeah.
but that happened. And I was just like, well, now they know for sure I'm human. I mean, that was a really human moment.
It's good. It's good to have those moments. Like, man, we are humans. So, yeah.
Well, you and I are.
Yeah. I guess some of us are AIs. I feel like it's a nice little way to end the semester, though. Some fireworks.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I've got one, like this girl, I really like her too. And she was like, she presented today and then she's like, do I have to come back on Monday? I'm like, yes. And that was like at 10 o'clock or whatever. I'm like, so I guess I was already frustrated. Like, you selfish little cunts. Like, I, I'm not giving you an exam. You can come to the last two classes.
Yeah, and never ask a question like that again. Don't ask
Yes.
that sort of question. Don't ask if you missed something when you were sick. Don't ask if you have to come to the last meeting.
I know. I think I'm going to make like a FAQ for the fall.
Yeah.
Like if this is what you want to ask me, go to this page first.
Yeah.
I also was thinking of using emails that I've received from students and of course taking the names off the emails, but saying like, how would you answer this email? Just that really egregious stuff. Like, I know I haven't turned anything into you all semester, but I really need this class to graduate. What can I do now? Okay, student, how would you answer that question
Yeah.
if you were me? Just
Yeah.
to, let them know that there's a lot of nonsense
Yeah.
that,
We deal with a lot of shit that they have no idea about, and like and maybe they are personally asking questions that no one should ever utter if you have any respect.
yeah. And the other thing is, well, I don't know who you had in your online sections, but somebody who presented today said, how many people in here are over 21? And it was just me and this other student. And I was like, wait. Does that mean that everybody who didn't raise their hand is under 21? And they're all like, yeah, Miss Hare. And I'm like, oh my fucking God. Like, I don't know if I knew that and forgot it or didn't know it, but I just assumed they were all older. So then I'm like, oh my God, these babies. They can't help that they're babies. But
Can't, but they're in a college course. They need to
yeah,
be raised to that standard.
yeah.
Otherwise, you don't take that college course. That's it.
I was at this meeting earlier. It was a faculty Friday kind of thing. And somebody was saying she has changed, somebody was saying she has changed her curriculum because there are so many high school students. And I was like, oh, no. I mean, we're talking about abortion. We're talking about polyamory. We're talking about decriminalizing drugs. I'm not going to change. Like, what am I supposed to talk about? School uniforms or some bullshit? Like, no.
No.
We're talking about what's going on in the world.
That's a disservice to do that.
I think so too.
Students, yeah, it's just like, I don't know, if I were teaching a film class and I knew that I only had like 16 and under students, and then I like morphed my curriculum so that there were no rated R films, that would be a disservice because I wouldn't be showing the best examples of different elements. It's just, that would be sad. And it's not as though any of us want to shock anyone who is younger, but some of this is shocking, perhaps. Some of the argumentation in your class, some of the reasons that my movies are rated R, it is shocking, but that's not the point of it. There's a deeper point, a more layered point. And it sucks to lower your standard, to lower it because of their age, because they're smart enough to understand this. It's just, are they mature enough? And if they're not, then they don't take college classes.
And the other thing too is like my course is supposed to be not identical, but identical in scope and depth to like something you would take at one of the major universities in our state. So it's like, yeah, I'm not going to have like Mickey Mouse ethics. Like, I'm just doing ethics. So, yeah. But
courses should be equivalent to those that they're getting at different universities. They should be. They're college classes. Community college doesn't mean college light or diet college or whatever. It's not, that's not what it means. It's just a different access. So.
That's why it's just so frustrating when I hear like a colleague who like so like diverges from, that viewpoint. I'm like, well, heck, we're not even on the same, we're not, what is it? We're not singing from the same hymnal or whatever that expression is, we need to.
Right.
But you can't control other people. I've tried and it doesn't work.
Have you tried to control me?
Well, yeah. But no. You're just going to do whatever you're going to do. Yeah. Not really control, but like, yeah, no, not control, but like think I have an opinion about what you should do and then you don't do it. And then I'm like, well.
If it makes you feel any better, just today I ordered a pair of glasses and I was chatting with someone that worked at the online store. Mm-hmm. And I said, I want to order these, or maybe I want to order these. Which pair's better, in your opinion? I know, like, it's only your opinion, so just tell me what's, like, your knee-jerk reaction. And she was like, I like these. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get the other pair. And I was like, nothing against what you said. I just, like, looked further into it, and I guess maybe I am a go with the other opinion sometimes.
Well, yeah, sure. But I guess I heard somewhere that like, let's say you're like, you have a decision in front of you and someone's like, okay, let's flip a coin. Like, heads, you go to the picnic, and tails, you stay home and watch TV. And then you flip it and it's like heads, go to the picnic, and the person will be like, best 2 out of 3. So they already know what they want to do. Yeah. It's just that sometimes we don't feel like we know what we want, but we actually do.
Agreed.
So is there a smooth transition into our movie from that? Not really.
I suspect not.
I see what you did there.
All right. right. The film that we looked at for today is Alfred Hitchcock's 1941 film Suspicion. This is based on a 1932 novel that was written by Frances Iles. The screenplay is Samson Raffleson, Joan Harris, Alma Revile, which is Hitchcock's wife, and the novel was called Before the Fact. The film stars Cary Grant, Joan Fontaine, Sir Cedric Hardwicke, Nigel Bruce, Dame May Whitty. Cinematography by Harry Stradling Sr., edited by William Hamilton. And again, it was released in 41. It was released in November of 1941. So kind of a very precarious time in history. Should we go over the plot?
Yeah, let's zoom through the plot, and we can help each other out here. Okay. But what's it about? Like, what's like in broad terms? What would you say?
It's about a newlywed couple where the wife suspects slowly more and more of her husband, and sort of by the end she suspects that he will murder her at any moment, and has committed murder before, and would pretty much do anything to have a comfortable life.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's a great summation of the movie. We've already had a conversation about this before. I was trying to think of like what were the highlights that I wanted to make sure that we hit, but maybe that's me trying to control things all over again. But Cary Grant is portrayed as this devil-may-care playboy, and Joan Fontaine is more elegant and she has more class. And the problem is, I guess she's not like the most attractive person or something in the village, because she's getting on in years, and if she's going to get married, she's got to do it soon.
Yeah, and so after meeting him, sort of a chance meeting on a train, and from the very beginning, we should say this too, from the very beginning, she understands that things are a little off with him. Each meeting that they have, and then, of course, after getting married, it becomes more clear. But it was never hidden in the beginning. It really wasn't. He was never hiding this. We come to find out soon after they meet that, she overhears her parents talking about her, and they kind of refer to her as, kind of without saying it directly, she's probably going to be a spinster. So she hears this, and actually he hears this too, and that's when they share their first kiss. And then pretty soon after that is, they get married. They have this really lavish honeymoon in different European cities, and it's like the most gorgeous honeymoon montage of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, where you see the big trunk that's being sort of passed everywhere, and each time you see a new city stamp, like Rome, Amsterdam, whatever. So they get back and they have this beautiful, gorgeous house. And kind of one of the first times that we see them once they're back from their honeymoon, it's revealed that he's in debt, and he borrowed money to pay for the honeymoon and the house. He doesn't have a job, so he can't start to pay the debt back anyways. And he doesn't really have any desire to get a job. He might be interested in perhaps, a few schemes, and he calls them schemes, but plans or whatever that involve him not working really to get money. But other than that, he's like not the type that's going to have a job.
I think he's supposed to be older than her, a little older than she is. So he's maybe close to 40. She's like in her early 30s, maybe.
Yeah.
But she looks at him when she's like, okay, hold on, wait a second. I'm like catching up to what you're saying, kind of thing. And she's like, oh, so you're a baby.
Yeah. And in that same conversation, she said something to him like, you are acting like you're proud of these things when really you need to be ashamed of them. And I love that line. So, that's not a direct quote, but it's that idea. And I think one of the things that we did talk about, and our lost pod, because we lost another pod, y'all.
We did.
It was due to audio issues, but one of the things that we covered was how, I mean, I think it's easy to see her character as someone that's like, you almost want to shake her and say, what are you doing? What are you doing? You need to stop this. You need to have not married him, but now that you married him, get rid of him right away, get far away from him. But it's also, if you're closely watching the film, you know, she's smart. She's not a dumb idiot, you know, that just wanted to get married because she overheard this remark. It's not because of that that she marries him. She is very much in love with him, and he is gorgeous, and he is enigmatic, and he is charming. You know, he is Cary Grant.
Yeah.
He does all of those things, and she loves him because of those qualities, and she could look past the other things. It's just when the other things start piling up and becoming bigger than the charm and bigger than, you know, the personality that is, she's like, But I think she is a strong character, and I think that she is written as a very strong woman, despite the fact that sometimes you do want to shake her. But that's like a surface level thing. I do think there's more to her than that, you know? And I mean, we don't get a whole lot of backstory or anything like that, but there's something about her that you understand, this sort of quiet intelligence. And I mean, do you agree? Do you feel like that's there?
Yeah, and I was commenting the last time on how the year before this movie was made, she made Rebecca, and that character she's constantly trying to make herself like not seen, and she's like hunching her shoulders and her head is down, and she's like trying to hide in her little cute sweaters and stuff. But in this movie, she kind of glides around and her chest is open and she just has a lot more confidence. And that was one thing I noticed. And so it's kind of frustrating, like you said, because okay, yes, it's Cary Grant. Who can resist him? But, you know, girl, it's, you know, after a while, you're just like, run, you know, get away from this guy.
Yeah, well, then she starts kind of like getting more and more immersed in this idea. And so she's seeing more details that are being revealed. So it really isn't like a long time into the film in which you're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? But yeah, I also like that, you know, when we see her in the beginning, it's very clear that these women that are, you know, like local to her area are all like, oh, we love him. Oh my gosh, we love him. We're going to do this. Let's do this together. And, you know, she's not interested in going with them to do anything, but she's not rude or anything either. I just think she's an individual. And that's something that I think, you know, with Rebecca, again, this is something I mentioned the other day, is that she doesn't even have a name, you know, and in this film, she is an individual. She's standing on her own. She is a character. She is a strong woman.
Yeah, it's just that she fell really fast and really hard for this guy. And that's something I can actually relate to. That happened to me with my husband. I've only had one so far. I don't think I'm going to have any more. But yeah, I fell really hard, really fast for that guy. And I felt like this is so different than anything I've ever felt before, and all those kind of cliches. So I can really relate. But the thing with that is, at least in my experience, falling really hard, really fast like that, for me meant that I fell out of love, you know, pretty quickly. You know, not quick enough to not get married or not get pregnant. That's a story from another day. But I get it. I get it. And I think I was younger than this character. I think, I mean, I was in my mid-20s and whatever, but I can really relate to that. And I mean, I think I'm much stronger now, but I don't think I was like a floppy fish or anything.
No, I'm sure you were not a floppy fish. I'm not sure what that means, but
I don't know. You get it.
All of these movies, I just, every time I see, because if anything, these films from this era will teach you that you could find somebody anywhere and you will fall in love with them within like minutes. You know, I mean, just looking at, gosh, the Manchurian Candidate, you know, and that the romance there. And it's like, I spent a long time during that podcast talking about how I couldn't buy how fast that happened. And honestly, that's me in all of these movies. So most of the time when I'm watching, I'm like, Quinn, just stop, get past it. Because I'm a slow mover in many things. And in romance, that's another slow move for me. So these films, I see it and I'm like, God, and it's so cringy to me, but it's like, I don't know. I mean, it does happen. But it feels like it happens within minutes in a film. So
Yeah.
just sped up, you know, and I don't know.
Well, I mean, to be fair, and it's kind of funny because Janet Leigh falls for Frank Sinatra on a train as
Yeah,
well. So what is it about trains? They're like really
it's so
horny, I guess.
romantic. I know. Oh my gosh. Funny side story. It's not that funny. But I had such a romanticized vision of a train ride in my head my entire life because I've watched these, like I grew up on these movies, watching these movies, and there are many more that begin on trains or a romance takes, I don't know, where it takes hold during a train ride, things like that. So I go on this trip and I am seeing this adventure in front of me, and the adventure involves a 49-hour train ride. And
Oh my God.
oh my God, all the things that could happen in this train ride. Well, one, I could fall in love. You know, I could perhaps get married on the train ride, maybe break up on the train ride. You know, like all these things could happen in 49 hours on a train ride. But instead, they just never cleaned out any of the toilets, so they all started into the cars.
Oh my God.
Also, it was a train ride from Beijing to Lhasa, so you go up in, elevation, and so the air is thinner, and they usually pump oxygen in the cars. Like they'll pump extra oxygen to acclimate you to the levels, and they were like, we're sorry, but our oxygen pumping is not working at optimal levels, so we're only pumping a quarter of the oxygen. And then everyone started throwing up.
Oh no.
Yeah, and then like these guys that were just squatting in like the hallway of the train were like opening the windows and like smoking cartons of cigarettes. And there was supposed to be like an English toilet on the train, but it was like 13 cars ahead or something, and I couldn't imagine doing it. So there's just the squatter, and like something happened with that and they didn't clean it out. But anyways, my view of a train ride, like totally, it's so, I got the stamp of reality with that one.
Yeah, you really did.
I did not fall in love.
No. That would be difficult under those circumstances that you described, to fall in love. Like, I feel like when I fell in love, it was in Hong Kong, and I was on vacation, and I don't know, it was all kind of set up. Like,
Yeah.
it felt like, you know what I mean? And I didn't have like this whirlwind trip like she does to all these different countries, but I did look up. He says he borrowed $1,000 to take her on this trip, and I did look up the exchange rate, and it's $22,000 in today's money that he spent, but it was borrowed. And when he gets the telegram, I guess, because everybody's constantly getting telegrams in this movie, but it's from the guy who's like, hey, I'd like my money back. I'd like that loan back, please.
Yeah. It's also interesting to think about the idea of, if he's so well known in like the society pages, and her father even has an idea who he is. I think he mentions that he's wild, whatever we think that our father means by the word wild, but he's at least known in some capacity. It's kind of interesting to think about how he would get a loan so large in the area to cover that honeymoon amount. How anyone would think that he has the credit for that.
Well, I know, but also he is so goddamn charming.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's a very fast liar. And I don't know, you're gonna believe him. I mean, Beaky, his best friend,
This is a segue to Beaky.
I mean, it's really Beaky's film when you get right down to it.
Yeah. So you were saying that Beaky was like the world's best enabler.
Yes. Oh, he's sick.
Yeah, Beaky is his good friend, and he is just, you're good at doing like a Beaky impression, but he just is like, he sees Johnny for who he is, and he thinks that everyone should just accept him fully, flaws, warts and all, and that those warts are really what makes him him, and we should, really encourage that as well.
Yeah, he says that to her, like, he's just being himself. And if he weren't like doing these schemes and stuff, that wouldn't be Johnny.
Yeah.
And she knows that, I think. It's kind of interesting tension that she has, because you're right. Like when she first sees him, their very first meeting, she knows that he's a con man.
Yeah.
And I guess she just turns that part of her brain off, or that thought off. So she can, I don't know, imagine him, as a grown up. And, but yeah, there's just so much evidence to the contrary. And we were talking about how he's abusive in this way that's really specific, in that he'll hurt her. Like, for example, the big example is the honeymoon gift from her father are these like heirloom chairs that are like museum pieces, she keeps saying. And Johnny sells them so he can go gamble at the horse track. And I love Cary Grant, but when that part of the movie came up, I'm like, no. Like, that just seems so cruel and disrespectful to me.
Yes, and very personal, because she just explained how excited that she was and how much this meant to her, because she knew how much her father loved the chairs, and her father knew how much she loved the chairs. So this was such a gesture to her, and it meant so much. And the first time she meets Beaky, that's when she's like, oh, what's missing here? My chairs, and my chairs are missing. And Beaky's like, are those chairs of any value? And he's like, well, those chairs are gone. Those are gone. Johnny sold those chairs.
Yeah, and it's really tough because her father did not approve of her getting married. She eloped with Johnny. And so, yeah, when he sends her those chairs, I think that really is a pretty big gesture, that even if he doesn't fully approve, at least he wants her to know that, she deserves to have nice things in her marriage. And yeah, when Johnny comes back later after he's like struck it rich at the racetrack, and he just lavishes like gifts on her and Beaky and the maid, and then reveals that he also bought the chairs.
Yeah.
It's another form of cruelty to me, because it paints her in this light where she didn't give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, she didn't see all of his good heart or something, like,
yeah, and like something like, how could you ever think that I would have actually sold those chairs with no intention of getting them back? My whole idea was to get those chairs back for you. And he does a similar thing too with when she realizes that he's not interested in getting a job right after the honeymoon. and they have this kind of argument, and this is when she calls him a child, and they argue for a little while, and then finally he pulls this note out from his pocket that's like, hi, I would like to offer you this position, and it's like, you've had that the entire time, and you just made her go through all of this, and you know that you're a child, and you know that you're in the wrong, and you know that you are hoping for this life that, is not something you're working for.
Right.
Within that conversation, she also, is like, did you marry me because you thought you were going to be set for life with my inheritance? She's like, it's not that big of an inheritance. It won't be. You won't be set for life. You could have married someone much more rich and could have been set for life, but not in this case, buddy. It's not that situation. But yeah, I also agree. I think that's that form of abuse, like seeing it on screen, it's a unique thing that I don't know that I've seen done, or at least on screen. I mean, but to think about the way in which he sort of punishes her by forcing her hand in a lot of ways, for that pause is just, it's so sick.
Yeah, I haven't seen it exactly like this too, because it's got that 1940s flavor of, men are masters of the world and women are children. And so he's sort of like, oh, you silly thing. Like, of course I didn't, sell those chairs off with no intention of getting them back. But how was she to know? I mean, it's so audacious that he sold them in the first place. And she forgives him for that. And so, yeah, and then he brings her a puppy dog, and I mean, it's just like, oh man, and her face is just like sad, like, oh no, like, what are you doing? Like, spending all this money. And yeah, it kind of reminds me of, and I don't have direct experience with this, but it reminds me of portrayals of a parent who is like manic, or bipolar, sorry. And so sometimes they're like lots and lots of fun and they're going, on adventures. And then other times they just, they can't get out of bed. And it's just like kind of not knowing who you're going to get. And there's a moment where Johnny has this scheme to buy up all this land and turn it into like hotels or something. Mm-hmm. And he's going to get the money from Beaky. And she goes to Beaky, like, Beaky, dude, I don't know if you want to do this. And he gets not Beaky, but Johnny gets very angry at her. And we see the other side of him.
Yeah, that's kind of the scariest. That's like the peak level where he's like, don't you ever say anything like that. And it's like, but it's intense.
Yes.
And then it's easier to see moments like that are like a little bit less intense, but still are like reaching the same level later because he went to that level there. Like when she is sick and she doesn't want him to sleep with her, and she asks him to sleep in a different room. And you can just see that he is just so pissed off.
Well, and like a kid though, he's like, I guess I'll just like wear my jammies in the other room. Like, okay, don't be such a baby.
He is the embodiment of a child, like a man child.
Yes.
A boy child, whatever. But God, he's gorgeous.
And he's so tall and she's so small. And I don't know, that when he gets really mad at her and he's like, don't you ever, I don't know exactly what he says, but it is very scary.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been around that kind of thing where somebody like turns like that. It's very scary. And I've had that happen in my life with, and it's just like, oh shit. Like, I didn't know that was you. Yeah. Now I see it. And like you said, now I'll be ready the next time. Okay. So what's the chronology here? I guess the next part is
yeah, so Beaky needs to check out the area that he's going to, he's going to front for this money. And so, Johnny wants to take him there. And, so they leave, and she gets very concerned all of a sudden that he is going to kill Beaky. Because she knows that this land is kind of on like a sidewinder type of road, and right, off of a cliff, so like right into the sea. So she imagines that he's like going to try to drive him off the cliff or do something so that he is killed, and then Johnny gets his money and can develop this real estate adventure idea. She gets so concerned that she drives there herself. And then I guess she doesn't see them there, but she envisions him pushing Beaky off. Like, she actually sees that. Like, we as viewers see that vision that she has. And when she gets back, they're there. And she's just like, oh my God, so you didn't kill him, but she doesn't say that, but that's how she feels. And, during this, when they all are back at the house, Beaky says something like, oh yeah, I almost died out there. And then she's like, you did? What happened? And he says that he just almost fell, or he was backing up the car. But it seemed, it really didn't, it wasn't something that had anything to do with Johnny. So she was like, oh, and she's like, so Johnny saved you? And then it's like, these are those things that you can see in her head that are like, okay, he is a good person. But then like an hour before, she was fully in belief that he was capable of murdering his best friend, which I say we don't know in the end if he is or not. And I believe he is capable, but I don't know if he did or not. So then he and Beaky go to, Beaky's got to go away for the weekend, and Johnny's like going to go with him and then stop off somewhere else. Beaky has to go to Paris, and Johnny has to go to London, I believe.
I think that's right.
And then it is found out, police officers show up at her door, and they say, hey, do you know Johnny, and do you know Beaky, or just Beaky probably. And she said, yeah, I know him very well. And, they say, well, he's been found dead. He was poisoned after drinking at this restaurant. And do you know any reason why he would be? And where's your husband?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, well, my husband is in London, and it's just like it's ticking everyone's curiosity, obviously. Well, especially hers. She believes that, that this is how Johnny did kill Beaky, that Johnny went and poisoned him. And after Johnny comes home, he's upset and she's upset. And I like that scene where Johnny's like, oh, I'm sorry. I know that you must be upset too, because I know you were really fond of him as well. And I don't know, the scene like struck me as, it just was a cool scene. It might have been the shadows that I wrote down, perhaps, but like I enjoyed that scene because it was like, coming from his perspective, if he is this murderer, saying something like that is like, it's very pretty smooth, and it's very much something that this type of character would do, who is suffering from whatever he's suffering from. Like, he's a sociopath, he's a narcissist, he's whatever. I don't know. But, he says, oh no, I was away, I didn't see him, I wasn't there. And, yeah, the next scene, I think it's the next scene, they're at a dinner party. I probably left something out in between here and there.
Well, he does say something like, of course I wasn't with him, because it's been set up as a weird plot point that Beaky has an allergy to brandy, but he really loves the taste of brandy. And that's what he died from. He drank too much brandy. I guess he, drank a whole tumbler of it, and that did him in. But he's like, well, of course I wasn't with him, because obviously I would have stopped him from drinking that brandy. I was actually trying to borrow money against your life insurance policy. But that sucks too. It's like, well, I'm glad you didn't kill your friend, but still, You can't do that.
You're blowing up our entire future.
Yes.
You're fucking us over so bad financially, but I'm glad you didn't murder your friend this time.
But the dinner party is fun because we have a local mystery writer who attends the party.
Yeah, and she's fantastic. Her name's Isabel. And it's her and her brother who is a coroner, doctor, coroner, and then someone else, and then Lena and Johnny. So this mystery writer, she's seen going into town once in a while getting books, and sometimes they're like, oh, are these for Johnny or for you? And she's usually like, oh, they're for Johnny, he loves your books. So they're at this dinner party, and they start talking about like kind of the perfect murder, how to get away with murder. And I think she's talking about one of her latest books that Johnny's like, I didn't like this, and she's talking about how one of the characters was playing a piano, and like there was like a revolver wired to a key. And so when the player would hit that key, the revolver would go off or something, and he's like, oh, I think that's lazy writing. And and he says, I would poison somebody, I would poison someone, and the first thing that comes to my mind is using arsenic. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah. Then the coroner, her brother, kind of like pipes in and is like, well, you would think that's a good method, but it stays in a body. I actually had to exhume a body to decipher how they died years and years later, and the arsenic was still in their fingernails. And then Johnny goes, yeah, but did you catch the murderer? And he's like, well, I wasn't trying to catch a murderer. I'm doing my job. Like, it's just so weird. This whole conversation upsets her. They go home, and she is sick. Like, she feels ill, and she's also more and more convinced that he's going to kill her. And she has every reason to be convinced that he's going to kill her, because at this point, it does feel like he would do anything for that money. So she says, I don't feel well. I'm not sleeping well. I need you to go sleep in your dressing room. And that's when he throws this big boy baby fit. But he does leave. And then you see them the next day, her waking up, and you realize it's been like a day. And that the mystery writer and the doctor came over. And the mystery writer's like sitting in bed, and she's like, you're okay now. And she's told that like the doctor gave her some sleeping pill in the morning or something. Anyway, she's groggy, still doesn't feel well. And yeah, and she's, the mystery writer's like, yeah, we've been here all morning. He was so worried about you. And she's like, he was, and you get that glimmer of, oh, but after they leave, this is the milk scene.
Mm-hmm.
You want to take it from here?
So he brings her a glass of milk, and actually there was a tiny little light bulb in the bottom of the glass of milk. And so he's walking up these dark steps, and so the milk is actually glowing on the tray. And it's a black and white movie, and the shadows are just so beautiful in this film, and just the shots in this particular sequence are very, it's just a guy walking upstairs, but you're just like, oh my God.
Not so. Like, it is so much more than that. It's something about the spiral staircase. It's something about, the panel on the door of the kitchen that he walks out of, and the shadow that gets cast. It's something about seeing this gorgeous specimen of a man in this gorgeous suit walking up the stairs, and you're still not looking at that gorgeous man because you're looking at the milk and you're looking at the shadows. And if anything has ever outshadowed Cary Grant, it's that milk.
Mm-hmm. And he sets it on her bedside table, and she doesn't drink it. So we see it in the morning, just as much milk is in the glass. And I guess in the original story, she did drink it. She knew there was poison in it, and she drank it, but not before writing a letter to her mom saying, I know Johnny's going to kill me, but I can't do anything about it because I'm so in love with him. And apparently the last shot or the last part, I don't know if this was the novel but anyway, after she's died, we see him walking to the post office with the letter. So I like that ending.
I
But
love
that's not what we get.
Yeah, that's what Hitchcock wanted. And so
Mm-hmm.
in interviews, he's talked a lot about how he doesn't like the ending. People often talk about the ending of this and how they don't like it either. And I don't like it either. I would prefer that ending because the ending we get happens too fast. Like, it is okay to get this ending, and I understand why he had to. He had to make so many, compromises with the studios to get things done within his career, and this was another compromise. They did not want to. This is during the Hays Code. I know I'm like getting back on my horse about the Hays Code, but you can't. You have to show, if you show this wrongdoing, you have to show the wrongdoer being punished. Like, you cannot let them go unpunished. And so because, he wasn't interested in showing that side of it, he was interested in the subtlety and just the allusion to this, that he couldn't do that. He wasn't going to show them catching Cary Grant. But also the studio was like, we don't want Cary Grant to be a murderer either. So, there was just a fight there. So we ended it in such a way where the next morning, the glass of milk is shown untouched. And she's like, I'm going to go to my mom's. I'm going to stay there for a few days. And he was like, no, you can't. And she's like, I'm going. I don't feel well. I'm going to recover there. And he's like, fine, you can go, but I'm driving you. And then she's like, ugh, because it's one more way that he's going to kill her. And so, of course, they have to take the same, sidewindy roads on the cliff to get to her mother's house. And he is speeding up and speeding up and speeding up. And I actually just saw a meme recently where it said, and it reminded me of myself in my recent road rage bouts, but it said something like, you know that you're driving in a narcissist's car if he or she is speeding up and sort of keeping you captive in the car, and it becomes a dangerous environment. And then this is something we said on the last pod, neither of us are diagnosing him, and I also think the word narcissist is thrown around here, there, and everywhere, as much as the vagus nerve, if not more. And I don't know that I completely understand it. I don't know if people that throw it around completely understand it, but I'm not interested in throwing it around. But I just see those, types of behaviors there. But anyways, he's speeding down this, sidewindy, dangerous road. And you can see it's the camera's going from the speedometer to her face to his hand on the clutch, and she's so freaked out that she moves. I think she opens the car door. He grabs her. She feels like he's trying to push her out of the car. Somehow he she gets back in and the car gets shut and they stop. And then plot dump.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he basically says that he wasn't trying to push her out of the car. Of course not, you silly girl. He was trying to save her by reaching, around her to pull the car door shut. And she almost killed them. It's her fault that he was driving like that. And he says that, she should go to her mom's because he's going to go back home and kill himself. And the reason that he was talking to the mystery writer about the poison that would be painless for the victim is because he wanted to kill himself because he felt so ashamed from embezzling the money that he embezzled when he was working for his cousin. And she's just like, oh, okay, then why don't we go back home together? And you don't have to kill yourself. Maybe just turn yourself into the police, but whatever, we can see it through together because we love each other. The end.
Yeah, so we leave thinking, well, he is not capable of murder. He did not murder Beaky. All he's done is try to is get money, and the only thing he is responsible for is having not paid it back promptly. And that is the only reason that, he's in any sort of trouble. Otherwise, he's like a perfect specimen of a human being. And he would never kill anyone, so he's not going to kill her, and he's going to go make it right. But if you actually watch the movie, you probably don't feel that way leaving the film. And I think Hitchcock, that's what he wanted too. That's maybe a compromise that he made, is that, hey, let's make it so obvious. Maybe he was like, let's speed up the ending like this. So you leave and you're like, what? Oh no, that was so fast. But then it maybe makes you think more. Perhaps he's just doing this to pull the wool over your eyes even further, because he knows that you know that this is not how it is. He knows that you know that this guy is capable of nefarious things and probably has done much worse things before. And if he's done nothing like that, if he's never murdered or anything, we for sure know that he's guilty of abuse of this woman.
Yeah.
Because everything that he says is contradictory to what he does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's a narcissist because I'm also not a doctor. So cue balls, neither one of us is a doctor, but he does gaslight her.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was just listening to this other show on a couple of Hitchcock movies, and the guest on that show was just speaking so lovingly about Hitchcock. And I've seen him mostly as a villain, a very talented villain, but, a pretty abusive man nonetheless. But listening to this guy sort of extol this man, it's almost like I was like, okay, I mean, if Cary Grant or the character Johnny is gaslighting her and also us, the audience, Hitchcock isn't. He's telling us the truth, and he's letting us see the truth about who Johnny is.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what he was doing.
I kind of like that idea, because I think that's sort of what he would do. Like, he wanted to fuck with audiences, but he also was like, he didn't give you stuff. So when I see this ending, and if I think more about this ending and how sped up it is, and how like tie up in a neat little bow of a plot gift it is, there's no way it is that. There's no way that that's what Hitchcock meant for this. So,
and I feel like he was so hamstrung. He was hamstrung by Rebecca. He couldn't shoot the real ending to that because of Hayes, and he had to like show Laurence Olivier as a victim and not a murderer.
Yeah.
It's a much better story if he is a murderer, but there are limitations that he was under. And then here again, the next year, he wants to do what was in the novel. He wants to tell that story, and he's not allowed to because of Cary Grant. Because of Cary Grant's reputation, and the studio just thought that audiences wouldn't like it.
Well, even so, I think I mentioned this book before, but there's this cool book that's an interview between Francois Truffaut and Hitchcock, and in that interview, Truffaut is asking him about the film, but also asking him about, his actors and stuff, because he uses a lot of the same actors over and over again. And he says something about Joan Fontaine, and Truffaut says, she was special to you. And he says something about her. And then he says, what if this movie was with Jimmy Stewart?
Mm-hmm.
And Hitchcock goes, Jimmy Stewart could never be a murderer in a film. So that to me is like, well, okay, you're saying Cary Grant is then, even though that's not what the movie says,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and also, I honestly think, when I think about this character, and then I think about Jimmy Stewart's character in Vertigo. That is such a complex character, and I think it gets so twisted and warped and disgusting and vile.
Mm.
Like, I almost think of these two characters as being sort of comparable on a villain level of, like, grossness.
Yeah. When he does that turn in Vertigo where he's forcing her to dress in a certain way, and he's very controlling, and you're like, holy shit, that this guy is really obsessed.
Yeah.
And obsession is scary.
Yeah.
So I feel like Cary Grant too. I wasn't trying to kludge this, but I mean, he's also obsessed. He's obsessed with having money and lavishing, gifts on his friends and on his wife. And he's obsessed with that. And he does, who knows what he does, but it's possible that he has done some really heinous things.
He has.
Yeah.
Sure. I think that I actually, having this discussion about it, I see it a little bit differently too. I see it as though it's like, oh, I'm never gonna just give you this ending tied up, so you figure out what it means. And it's like, maybe I didn't figure out what I think it means to me until now.
Well, also, I mean, and I think you're right. I think Hitchcock was like that. He's like, okay, fucking studio, like, I'm just gonna do what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna make it so that the movie has to be edited in this one certain way that it only makes sense. Or okay, fine. Cary Grant's not wink, wink, a killer, but I mean, on this theory, he's nodding to us, and he's like, you audience, you guys know what I'm trying to do or what I wanted to do.
The weapon that he gives him, I think, in this film is dialogue. Because more and more he talks and his actions, while he's speaking happen, the more and more we're convinced that he's guilty. The more and more she's convinced that he's guilty. So he's got a lot more dialogue than she does. And I think that's for a reason. I think that's sort of what amps our perception of him, and rightly so, because that's the way that people operate. The more that they talk, the guiltier they are. And if they're not revealing that they're guilty of some, extreme deviance like murder, the more he talks, the more abusive we see him as. And I mean, the more, reflective of this terrible relationship we see. And she has less and less dialogue. And I think that's a harder act to pull off as an actor, perhaps. I don't know. I'm not comparing the two of them. She did win. We didn't talk about this, but the film was nominated for Best Picture that year. And then she was nominated for Best Actress, and she won. And there are people that say that it was kind of a carryover from Rebecca because she was also nominated the year before. But regardless, it's the only Best Actor associated with a Hitchcock film to win an Academy Award. Not that that means anything, but it's worth noting.
And I think both performances are really good. And I think it would be interesting to watch these two movies, closely together, just to see the difference in her acting. Yeah. I mean, she's really great. And also, I heard or read that Cary Grant and Joan Fontaine did not get along, and you would never know it because the characters, just seem really wrapped up in each other.
Yeah. Wow.
Especially her. She's always like looking up at him and kind of like cozying into his chest. And she's just like, she just wants to, she's got a picture in her mind of what her husband is.
Yeah. And he is that. But he's also
in a way
darker other things, that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, should we move on to some trivia?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Do you want to just go?
I will go first. When
Okay.
Lena refuses Johnny's kiss, and this is in the beginning, and we didn't talk about this, but their first little date that he takes her on is just kind of a walk, and it's a walk up this hill where there's kind of another cliff. And
I've never been a huge Hitchcock fan, but I've seen a bunch of Hitchcock movies like in close succession, and it just now reminded me of the birds, and the birthday party scene, like walking up that cliff.
oh yeah. And also,
But
like, sorry, but this is also like just flashed before my eyes. The cliff scene at the beginning of Rebecca when she meets him and he's like
mm-hmm.
gonna throw himself over.
Yep. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, so this is then, and he the wind is blowing and he's grabbing her, and she's sort of like pushing against him, and he's like, "What do you think I'm gonna do? Murder you?" And this is again sort of for further evidence, but he tries to kiss her. And then there's a tight shot of her closing her purse, which is what's called a kiss lock, or what is referred to as a kiss lock because it resembles the firm crossing of one's legs.
And I didn't think of legs, but I just thought, oh, that's it. Like, that's a boundary.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen.
Yeah, like subject closed, not happening now. But
right.
Later in that date, she ends up kissing him, which is better.
Yes. Originally, this movie was intended as a B movie to star George Saunders and Anne Shirley. But when Alfred Hitchcock became involved, the budget increased, and Laurence Olivier and Francis D. were engaged to star.
What would have happened if Laurence Olivier and Joan Fontaine were in this?
I would like to see that.
I would like to see it too, but you know how I feel about Cary Grant. I can't put anyone else in that role.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about it too, and just trying to think of. I mean, he's just so special. He's just got that, sweet, lovable charm.
Yeah, he is everything. When I was little, my grandmother liked Cary Grant, so this could have been the reason that I was getting into old movies when I was younger. But I think I would have been, I don't know how old I was, but I told my grandmother that I would never get married or have sex because I was saving myself for Cary Grant.
Oh, wow.
That's so grossly weird.
No, I think that speaks to the power that he had over. I mean, I can name you 5 or 6 friends of mine who are obsessed with Cary Grant. I mean, he's just like a doll baby. Yeah. And you just want, like, Houseboat and Charade.
Oh, God.
Like, come on.
Charade. He's
Charade.
So we should do Charade. Oh, my God.
We should. That's so fun.
An Affair to Remember.
Mm-hmm.
His grandmother. And oh, my God. I just, grew up with that one. So good. All right, so movie historian Ben Makowitz noted that Cary Grant was so displeased with his experience with director Alfred Hitchcock during the making of this one that he publicly vowed never to work with him again. The rift between the actor and the director was mended, however, and Grant and Hitchcock collaborated on 3 more movies: Notorious, To Catch a Thief, and North by Northwest.
It's becoming a theme on this show how much the actors were paid.
Oh, yeah.
But Cary Grant was paid. This is a lot earlier than Rope, right? But I think this is the same amount of money, right? It looks like it.
Yes.
Cary Grant was paid $112,500 for his work in this film, while Joan Fontaine earned $69,750. At that time, Alfred Hitchcock was still being paid a weekly salary as a director, and he was not happy about the amount his 2 stars were paid.
Oh, I would love to know what he was getting paid specifically.
Me too.
There are many differences between the movie and the novel. Johnny Asgarth's infidelity is not featured in the movie. Lena's best friend, with whom Johnny has an affair, does not appear at all. In the novel, the maid Ella has an illegitimate son by Johnny. Ooh.
I want to read this novel.
You too. You too.
I don't know this writer, but it's just so crazy. Like, we just did The Birds on the main show, and I did, look up that story, and it's so much better.
Yeah.
The original is just so much more grim and scary. And it's just a shame, but
yeah, I don't love The Birds at all.
No. Why don't you read the one about the doggy?
Oh, yeah. I'm still not certain I'm pronouncing the breed correctly, but the dog in the movie is a Sealyham Terrier named Johnny, and it's Alfred Hitchcock's own dog. Sir Alfred Hitchcock kept Sealyhams for many years. In The Birds, Hitchcock walked out of the pet store with Sealyhams on a lead. And it's just like a cute little terrier if you haven't seen it. And Johnny gives it to Lena as a gift, sort of when he buys the furs and he gets the chairs back. And I don't know. There's something weird about giving a dog as a gift to me. And I mean to many.
I know. I was looking at Instagram the other day, and it's like there are so many people doing so many things. And this one that I stumbled on was just like this guinea pig channel. And it was just this guinea pig, like making guinea pig noises. Like, I don't know how I can't do it. But I was just like, and then I remembered that when I first met you, I really wanted to buy you a guinea pig. Like, I almost did it.
Oh my gosh. Did I send you pictures of my new guinea pig friend, Schmidt?
I don't know.
Okay, so after we had dinner with Lindley last week, I had to go to the pet store to get night treats. And
right.
There's always a guinea pig or two there. And recently there's been a guinea pig named Mateo. He's been there for like 2 years. And then he had a friend there named Cannoli. And they initially wanted Mateo and Cannoli to be in the same cage, but they both were alpha males. So, like, they had really big fights. They had to separate them. Then Cannoli got adopted. And then I didn't know Mateo got adopted, but now Schmidt is there. And Schmidt is probably like, I don't know how many pounds Schmidt is, but he's like a beautiful, like, white, brown, and black guinea pig, but he is so big. He doesn't look that big, but when he gets up, you're like, whoa, you are that big, man. He's huge. And there's a bunch of signs around his cage that are like, don't stick your fingers in my cage, I'll bite. That's like good life advice. Like, you don't stick your fingers in other people's shit. You don't look for Schmidt. And I love Schmidt.
Yeah, I don't know. I just have this fantasy that you have a guinea pig or maybe even two.
I know. I love them so much. But I don't want to clean their cages.
Yeah, that's nasty. Like, I've been watching all these videos on tortoises and turtles, and this woman made this really cool enclosure for her turtle. But I'm like, oh my God, I can't. It was like underneath her television. And I'm like, I don't even want to imagine what that smells like.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, I had 2 guinea pigs when I was little.
I had 2. I know that one was named Cinnamon. Maybe Cinnamon and Nutmeg. I don't remember. And I have no idea what they look like. This is just a really, really like watercolor, like memory. I mean, I was little, like 3 or 4. Like I barely remember it. But Mac had, I don't know, hamsters or gerbils. I don't know the difference. And they kept dying. And I think we were putting the wrong bedding in the cage. Or it could have been something else. But I mean, it was really sad because, you got a sweet little kid and you're trying to let them have a pet and they just keep dying. Yeah. It was very sad.
Yeah. Winnie was not very young was not very old when she died. She had long hair, and there's a thing. I guess now it's very well known that they need to be cutting their teeth all the time.
Oh,
They can grow
yes.
so big, and they grew so big, and it got to a point where they couldn't be like cut on their own. She would have had to have done it little by little, and it wasn't happening because we didn't have probably the proper things. And so she was not a nice guinea pig, or I mean, she just was like, she had a real attitude. We all respected her though so much. Nobody was like tried to cuddle or anything, but when she was so sick at the end, she died in my mom's arms. I remember my mom
Oh my
holding
God.
her in a towel and just petting her, and she just started crying, and she was like, she's stiff. And it was so sad.
Oh, wow.
But then after Winnie, we had a guinea pig named Bud. And at the time we also had a dog, who was a pug named Jake. And we would be like, Bud's a pig, Jake's a pug. That's not a good story.
I like that story.
But Bud was so nice. Like, he would probably have just slept in your bed if you let him. He was so cool and nice, and he wanted you to stick your fingers in his cage, because then he would kind of cuddle up. They're just so cute, and I love their noise.
They're super cute. Yeah.
Okay.
Film critic Bosley Crowther, what a name,
Ooh.
of the New York Times considered that Cary Grant was, quote, provokingly irresponsible, boyishly gay, and also oddly mysterious, as the role properly demands. Nice use of descriptors.
Beautiful work, Bosley. This is something we talked about before, but not this time around. Johnny has a nickname that he calls Lena, and the second scene that they're in together, he calls her Monkey Face, and then continues to call her Monkey Face, and he calls her that 19 times throughout the film.
Yeah. A big latticed window casts a spider's web-like shadow across the actors and actresses. Well, should we move on to Letterboxd?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Do you want to do the 5-star reviews?
Sure. Yeah, I'll do the 5-star reviews. All right, so this one is Sam Weber. This is a film about a man who is a prick, and then for some reason, the cool lady who rides horses and reads books is in love with him. Then he's a prick some more, and every time you think, aha, gotcha, with his prickery, he does some smooth talking to worm his way out of it, the cheeky worm. Not sure how we were supposed to feel at the very end. In my partner's words, quote, Cary Grant was indeed full of spish, despite the end, some murdering spish. I don't know, Sam. Write what you want. Pick your favorite bit. I give this one 10 out of 10 stars for the crime writer and her wife's sick suit. And
that is really funny.
Oh, that's her wife.
The crime writer has a wife?
Yes, she's the other person that's at the dinner party. She's wearing a suit.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Wow, okay. It does make sense, because I was like, even this time around, I said, well, it's her and her brother's a coroner, and then there's some other person.
Yeah, and there are, I mean, now that you mention it, there are, some suggestions. They sit very close together when they're sort of taking care of Lena. And yeah, they do kind of act like a couple. I did not pick up on that.
I didn't either. Oh my gosh.
Well, thank you, Sam Weber.
Yeah. And her wife's sick suit. I was like, her wife? Wait, you wrote this wrong. Wait, I'm wrong. Wait, who's that person? All right, so this one is by Rend_it. Anyway, if my father saw me come home both late and beautiful, he might have a stroke. Impromptu Hitchcock double feature. The way he turns the screwball rom-com on its head, meticulously ratcheting up the menace, hinging on the type of cad only Grant could play, sublime. Gothic, murderous goodness with lush production design and allusions to strangers on a train make this a sleeper favorite from the master. Shout out to the hero, villain, Laganda.
Can you look that up?
Yeah, I better.
Or I can look it up. I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
And sometimes these references, it's a British luxury car brand established in 1906, which has been owned by Aston Martin since 1947.
So is it an Aston Martin then? Is a Laganda an Aston Martin?
No. Wait, when was this movie made? 41? No, it has been owned by Aston Martin since 47.
Okay. Huh. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Mystery solved.
Yeah. Really, the car is definitely. Yeah, it's a character. All right, so this next 5-star review is Newell Hampson Jones. Hitchcock did what he does with suspense, creating a tense thriller which wrong-foots your expectations. There are directorial tricks to tease your emotions and raise your suspicions. The use of shadows and light to ratchet up tension or flood you with relief is expertly done. Cary Grant plays the suave charmer with his usual panache, but his true skill comes when he turns on a dime into a potential killer. It's truly impressive performance. Joan Fontaine plays Lena perfectly to get the audience sucked in and empathizing with her. I am doing a terrible job reading in general. All right, you could dissect suspicion and see it as a by-the-numbers thriller, but in doing so, you'd see how Hitchcock hits every note perfectly, uses every visual trick in its right place, and proves he was an expert at his craft.
He was that.
Yeah, he was that. There's no arguing with that.
Moronic Fables gave it 1 star. Pulls the rug under audiences so completely at literally the last minute that it undoes what positive qualities it had. What a shame, because it actually managed to be quite entertaining and even thrilling at times, but that abrupt ending was so forced and unearned that it felt like a strange mistake, like the studio turned in an incomplete movie. I don't think I've seen a film so completely undo all of its setup in such a clumsy and disappointing way like how this one did.
I guess you can argue against the genius, but you would be wrong.
I was trying to channel that guy, Jason Gaston or whatever, the dramatic reading guy. I love him.
I think that's like really a very common reading of this movie. And honestly, the first time I watched it this round, I was like, damn it. But I do think that there's merit there, and it is not as simple as it seems. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think I learned a lesson. I listen to a lot of podcasts, as you Wohos and Cue Balls probably know by now. But I was listening to one about a movie that I didn't particularly love, which was Infinity Pool. But the people who were dissecting the movie, it's dismembering horror, and they dismembered it. And they really picked like every piece of this fucker apart. And I was like, you know what? I could have been more charitable to that movie. I know that Brandon is very good at his job. But I just didn't love that movie. And I thought it was kind of, I don't know. I don't think it was for me. I don't think what he was trying to show in that movie was really the kind of stuff that I'm thinking about on the regular, or care about.
You love
Possessor
so much. I get
so
it.
much.
But I watched that one with you, Infinity Pool, and I'm not sure what I think about it. I think you need to watch it again, but
we should watch it again.
James.
Oh my God. I laughed like so hard in that movie, and There's a lot that I really like about it, but I don't know, it just wasn't hitting
Yeah.
me in the right place. But I remember, and spoiler for Infinity Pool cue balls, but the woman sitting next to Quinn sat through the whole movie. But at the very end, when Mia Goth like nurses Alexander Skarsgård's character, that's when she walked out.
I loved that so much. I was like, that's the straw that broke the camel's back. That is it for her. And there was really like maybe 3 minutes left.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Oh, I just said I need to revisit that one.
Yeah, me too. It's good. It's just, I don't know, Possessor really did. And I wonder if it's a man-woman thing. I don't know. Like, I was so into Andrea Riseborough and, of course, Jennifer Jason Leigh, my queen.
Yeah.
And I do love Skarsgård as an actor. I think he's very good.
Yeah.
But I don't know, just didn't really care.
Yeah.
Jake Destry gave it 1 star. I'm game for some old-fashioned dialogue, but playing off psychological abuse as charming flirtation grows overwhelming at a certain point. It's hard to watch Joan Fontaine be a doormat for the entire film. Just take a drink every time she gets called monkey face. Cary Grant, an actor I adore, plays an asshole from start to finish. When the big twist is that he's just an asshole and not a murderer, suspicion is unsatisfying to say the least. One of Hitch's worst. And it still bothers me that he calls him Hitch.
Yeah, that's
Jake.
No, honey, you don't get to do that. But I think what he says in that first part, the playing off psychological abuse as charming flirtation grows overwhelming. I think that like that is left up to the audience to figure out. Yeah, that is overwhelming to see that sort of that level of abuse. But is it realistic? I think it is. I think it's probably not something that we saw a whole lot in the 40s, though, in film.
No. And it's times like this where I wish my mom were alive and like cogent, because she was really good. I'm making a pitch for people to have friends who are like 20 years older and 20 years younger than themselves. I mean, unless you're 26, that'd be weird. But I mean, I really like having people of all different ages sort of in my friend group, because I think she lived, she was born in 44. Like, I think she would have, a take on this that we can't ever really understand.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Excuse My Beauty gave it 1.5 stars. A parable about why marrying a man who calls you monkey face isn't a great idea.
Yeah, I'll take it.
So let's talk about some of the things that we love about this film. Do you have a favorite scene or favorite element in this film, Quinn?
Well, last time I said it was her reliance on her glasses for every tiny little thing. And I do love that. I think it's very charming.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love, we already talked about it, but the shadows and the reliance on the shadows sort of as such an imposing suspense is, I just think he's using it so beautifully. I mean, it's silly to say Hitchcock does a good job here, but like, my God, he is just using the light and the shadows and the light and the dark and playing with it so beautifully that that's what those reviewers are talking about, how it ratchets up the suspense. It's because of the heavy use of the shadows, and it's just so good in this film. And I can't imagine, I've said this before, I don't ever want to teach lighting unless I start with a black and white film, because it really is, it's when you really become impressed by the power of lighting. It's hard to do in color films unless you understand what it looks like and how powerful it is in a black and white movie, and how it sort of becomes its own element and its own sort of like force to be reckoned with. And in this case, And in a lot of film noir films, or films that kind of like straddle genres like that and could be film noir, the over-reliance on the light and the shadows is a necessity. They love it. What about you?
I like the scene with Beaky. I think that Nigel Bruce is just a fucking doll. And I, yeah, that's my favorite part of the film. He's just sort of, you know, in love with his friend, and just their personalities are so different. And he calls him Old Bean. And I don't know. I just love the whole thing.
Yeah, are they supposed to be the same age?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But maybe Nigel Bruce's character is older because he's kind of dumb, but he's wise to Johnny. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I actually love the ease at which he sort of slides into their life, because he
Mm-hmm.
is not at all seen as like a negative force. And he's not, I don't think, other than his sort of unflappable love for Johnny, and you know, he's not going to change him. He's not going to change his ways in any way. He's not going to make him better. But he gets along so well with Lena, and Lena with him. And Lena, I think some of those scenes when you see Lena and Beaky talking, I think that gives you a better idea of who she is, because
Yeah.
she can be very, very playful with him, and she can also be very strong with him, and she speaks her mind, and she's not at all afraid of what he thinks or of any impression that he gets from her, you know? I mean, he even, at one point, she calls him a child, and he says, "Oh, should I go stick my nose in the corner?" And she says, "Yes." And he does, you know, and it's, I don't know, and she does come to care for him a lot in a very short period of time, but it's hard to see. It would be difficult to see any individual kind of like seamlessly slide into a marriage and be like, "Hey, everyone cares about me and likes me." Like, I just think that's abnormal. So I don't think
Huh.
you can pull it off except Beaky.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, and I mean, you've known her a lot longer than I have. So maybe she's the Beaky in this situation. But like, I don't know if I can bleep this out or whatever. But I'll just say L.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, has like slid into my life like so easily.
Yeah.
And I'm just sad I don't get to see her more often. And I don't know if you and I were like roommate. I don't know. You know, I think she's the kind. I think there are people that you meet sometimes in this life, and it's just like you just know each other, and I feel like that with her.
Yeah, I think that too with her and you, especially because of how fast you guys became friends. I think it was just something that was like cosmically was supposed to have happened before or something. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe it just didn't for whatever reason, but then it was like making up for time lost or something. I don't know that I see Beaky as that sort of level of, but maybe I wish we could see more. I wish there was like a Beaky spinoff of like him and Johnny, you know, the years before or something.
I mean, it's just like, it's so weird. It's just like a cultural difference, like 41 and now or whatever. But Johnny's like, "Oh, Beaky's going to be staying with us for a while." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, cool. You know, here's the sheets and here's the towels." And I mean, she's totally okay with it. And I was like, "Oh, well, wow.
I
I don't."
know the first time watching it this time around, and he's like, "And Beaky's going to stay with us for a while." I was like, "What? No." She is cool with it, and honestly, Beaky's cool. Like, he's not
Yeah.
posing. He's nothing. He's only Johnny's cheerleader, and you know he's probably Lena's cheerleader too. We probably just don't see that.
Hmm.
But Beaky is, you know, I don't know. He is the embodiment, embodiment. Say that word. He is the enabler, but he's also, you know, he's the comic relief in this film. He is the relief in many ways, in other ways, but he's also kind of like the reflection of kind of like everything that we would want to do type of thing. Like, he knows that he shouldn't drink brandy because he gets sick and he could die. I don't know how, but that's a thing. And he drink it, and he's like, you know, and he does have this, you know, he at their house, he drinks it and starts coughing and choking, you know. He knows he shouldn't drink brandy, but he did. And like, he may have not been poisoned by anybody. I'm sure he was, but and I'm sure it had something to do with Johnny. But he may not have been. He may have just had brandy and died for whatever reason that he cannot have brandy. And if he died having brandy, then I see him as a very, you know, like, just such a character that, like, he is going to indulge in all of these things that he knows can hurt him because he loves it so much. He loves it. He loves Johnny so much. He loves brandy so much. He seems to love life.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at the actor's body, I mean, you can tell that this is somebody who has enjoyed himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's just like a big teddy bear. I just love him. He's my favorite. But I was just thinking, I wanted to say this before about Johnny. He reminds me of somebody. I don't really want to say who, but he reminds me of somebody in that one scene where he's like, well, I mean, if worse comes to worse. And she's like, yes. And he goes, I'll just have to borrow more money. And it's like, he can't see the cause and effect. It's like, it's not lining up right. And he's just become accustomed to not taking responsibility for his life. He's a playboy. He just plays.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's got, you know, impulse control problems, and same with Beaky, you know, and it's like, I know I'm looking at it like through all this time and, you know, but I just feel like they are similar in that. And they're both kind of like, they like to indulge. They don't want to think about it. They just want to have
they're
fun.
Not really going to live in reality because reality means restrictions and they're not into that. Or it means job, employment, gainful employment. It means sobriety. It means, you know, whatever it means. It's not where they want to live.
Right. Yeah. Would you recommend this film, Quinn?
Yeah, absolutely. I would. I wouldn't recommend it as like somebody watching this, you know, if they were like, I want to dive into Alfred Hitchcock movies, where should I start? I would never say start at Suspicion. But I would recommend.
Where would you say to start?
I tell my students, if we do Hitchcock, which I usually do Psycho, so I tell them to start with the really kind of like I tell them to start with Rear Window and things like that, things that are really very more mainstream, you know. I also think The Trouble with Harry is a good place to start as a later suggestion of Hitchcock, where I don't know that it's necessarily, I don't think that it is indicative of his tone and style, but it's a fun one, and it's something that Hitchcock loved, you know, just because it's fun and it's a mystery. But I would say Rear Window. I would say Psycho as well. I do think Strangers on a Train is good too, in terms of not getting too heavy, but not being too light either. If you can get past Bruno's outlandishness, then dive, because I think it's probably a masterpiece.
I think that one really hits me. Like, I don't know why, but that I mean, there is suspense in this one that we have been talking about, but I didn't feel like, you know, I couldn't breathe watching Suspicion, but I do feel like that with Strangers on a Train.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it really gets me. I don't know what the difference is, but I love Strangers on a Train. I would recommend this one too. I mean, especially for somebody who's already seen some Hitchcock. And also, it's kind of cool now that I'm learning more about him. You know, this one is great with like the shadows and everything. Yeah. So just be like, watch this for the shadows, or whatever. I just think it's gorgeous.
Yeah, and it's kind of neat too. I'm interested in reading about how I would love to read anything about Hitchcock talking about this film and about like the meaning and in the treatment between Johnny and Lena and the abuse. I'm interested in that now because I think that a lot of the things that I do feel like Johnny is guilty of clearly in this film are things that have come out that Hitchcock himself was quite guilty of that hadn't been so overt, or like people didn't know about it until the last 10 years or so. But I'm interested to see like how conscious that was. Like if this had any sort of, like if this was any sort of catharsis in that I see myself doing these things, even though at this point, he did the worst way after this. So yeah, I'm just interested though in that because I just don't think this is as simple as a movie as it could be seen upon first view. And I like that it's 1941 and it is like we can pick it apart just with the dialogue and the treatment and the abuse. Like it could be its own show, and I think it probably deserves it. But I'm interested in seeing how conscious anyone was of that.
Yeah, we should get a psychologist on at some point, to analyze some of these characters. There's a podcast that I've been listening to, but they kind of do more mainstream stuff. It's called Shrink the Box. And they have a licensed psychologist on there to, psychoanalyze or analyze characters like Tony Soprano and the chick from The Queen's Gambit and things like that. And I really love that because that's as an amateur, like psychologist, armchair psychologist, that's the kind of stuff that I really like.
Yeah, we have a treasure trove at our fingertips at school too. I have someone in mind.
Yeah.
Like Hank. We gotta ask Hank. How cool is
Hank? Oh man, that would be really wonderful. I love the fuck out of that guy.
And he's like into these movies too. I'm sure he would love it.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
What would we watch again? I would watch this again.
Oh yeah. I'm never gonna stop watching Cary Grant movies. Sorry, not sorry.
I'll put in the notes the number for our episode on arsenic and old lace.
Oh yeah, because I was just in my brain seeing Beaky and Johnny, and then I was seeing Teddy and Johnny, I believe is his name.
Yeah, Johnny. Thank you, Wohos and Cue Balls, for joining us for this special edition Quinnisode. Next time on the main show, Mac and I will be looking at urban legend movies. We will be reviewing La Llorona from Guatemala and Candyman 1992 from the US. Next time on the Quinnisode, Quinny and I will be looking at A Clockwork Orange and The Parallax View. We would love it if you subscribed and left us a nifty 5-star rating, but we'd be just as happy if you just told all your friends all about us. And I gotta say, we have had a lot of action from all over the world of people downloading the show. So whoever you are out there, Wohos and Cue Balls, who have started telling everybody all about us, we love you. And don't go into the basement.